Hey everyone, how's it going? So last time we successfully connected to our MongoDB database using this part right here. But of course we had some deprecation warnings in the console. Now these are just warnings, so they won't actually impact our ability to work with MongoDB. But we still want to remove them. I don't like them being there, and plus they're deprecation, so why would we want to keep using these things? So what we're going to do is fix these in this video, but we're also going to move this code right here to a different file. So we're going to create a new file. We're going to create it in the root of our site. So I'll go down here and just right click and click new file, and I'll just call this database.js. Alright, database.js. And what we're going to do is say const mongoose equals require, and inside there we'll say mongoose. So we're taking the mongoose package right there. Now we're going to do some things here to remove the warnings, but before we do that, let's actually just connect to the database just like we did before, but we're going to do it inside of a class. So we'll say class database, alright, class database, and what we'll do is we'll create a connect function. So we can say connect like this. So this is our connect function. And then in there, we're going to call the connect on this mongoose part of here. So let me go back to app.js, and I'll copy this code right here that we did, or cut it, I should say. I'll get rid of it from there and move it to here, and paste it inside of the connect function that we just wrote. Oops, I meant to tab that across. Tab. Alright, so that stuff can stay the same. We're actually done with this whole function now. There's really not much to this file that we're about to do. And then all we're going to do is call this function in the constructor. So we can say constructor. Now, if you didn't know, a constructor is just the code that is called or ran when an instance of this class is created. So basically, this constructor is the first thing that is going to run in this class. And all we're going to do is just say this dot connect like that. So we're essentially just calling this function. Now we could just stick this inside there, but it's an organized way to do it in a separate function. Okay, we don't want to put too much logic in the constructor. So this is our database class that is going to basically handle the connection to the database. Now, of course, we could leave this as it was. We could just leave it in there like that. It would be absolutely fine. You might argue that it's a bit simpler, but it's a good habit to get into. To separate your code into different files like this. It's really not good practice to keep all your different logic pieces in the same file. This is good practice. Separating it into a separate class is kind of the way you should do it. Ooh, I've got a stray S down there. Let me just remove that one. Okay, so the last thing to do is underneath this class, so underneath the closing curly bracket of the class, I'm going to just say module.exports. Remember, that's exports with an S, not export on its own. And then I'm going to say equals new database. So essentially I'm creating an instance of this class as the export of the file. So the module.exports, in case you've forgotten, is just the thing that's given out of this file. So the thing that's given back from this file. So when we access this file here, the exports is what we have available to us. So we're essentially just going to say this file just gives us an instance of the database class. So let's save that, and I'll go back to app.js. And we don't need to call, we don't need mongoose anymore because we're doing that inside this class. What we're going to do instead is say /, which means go from the current directory we're in, and we're currently at the root level, so we can just access the database.js file directly. So just by requiring this, it should create an instance of our class for us. It'll run this, which of course calls a connect function, and you should see the same thing. So essentially, we should, if we've done it all right, see the exact same output in the console, even with the same warnings and everything. So let's see. Yep, so we're still seeing the same warnings, and we see database connection successful. So that's good. We've essentially just removed the logic from the app.js page, put it into a separate file, and we've just verified that it does work. So the last thing we're going to do, and then we're done with the database connection, is just to add 4 lines of code which will get rid of these warnings for us. So right at the top, and by the way, I'm going to explain how this works in just a second, but right at the top, we're going to just add some lines of code to get rid of those warnings. We will say mongoose.set, inside there, we're going to say use new URL parser. We'll set the new URL parser property to true. Now we're doing that because the warnings tell us that they've updated their URL parser, and it says to use the new parser, pass option new URL parser true to MongoDB connect. So we could set this when we actually call the connect part right here. You can pass this in as a second option, like here, but it doesn't matter. We're just going to do it up here, and it's the exact same thing, okay? And then if you look at the next error, it also says we should pass the option use unified topology true. So let's do that. I'm going to copy and paste this line below, and I'm going to take this use unified topology part right here, paste it in there. Oh, there's a colon at the end of that, so I'll get rid of that. So use unified topology, and that will be set to true. So let's give that a run and see what we get now. So both of those warnings have gone away. We now only get this database connection successful message. Now there's two more lines we're going to do, and they're to address issues that we're not currently seeing, but we may as well do them while we're here. We're going to copy and paste that line below, like that, and then we're going to change this option to use, find, and modify. So use, find, and modify, and we're going to set that to false. Basically, one of the Mongo functions we use called find, warn, and update, which you'll see later in the course, basically just calls a function on the MongoDB driver, which is no longer supported. So by setting this, it will switch and use the supported version. You don't have to concern yourself with that. Long story short, it just to prevent us using an unsupported version of a function. The function would still work, but we'd see a warning in the console when we came to that. So this just prevents us from seeing that. Now, there's one more thing we're going to add, but I don't even think we need this anymore because I think with new versions of MongoDB, it's set to true anyway. But for the people that might be using an older version of MongoDB, they would see a warning if they didn't set this. So we may as well set it anyway. If it's already set, setting it again won't do anything. So what we're going to do is copy and paste that line below, and we're going to say use unified topology, and then set that to true. So use unified topology basically just opts into using the new version of the MongoDB topology. Now topology is just the, think of it as like the way the network is built, you know, the locations of the servers and things like that. So previously or on older versions, this was set to false while they experimented with it. And then in the newer versions, which I believe we're using now, they just turned it on for everybody. So if you're using an older version, it might give you a warning if you don't set this, but if you're using a newer version, like I seem to be, you wouldn't see an error. I think it's turned on anyway, but by setting it, it's fine because it's already on, so you may as well just put it there. Anyway, let me just restart this and make sure we're not seeing any more errors and we still see the database connection successful. So that's it. We've connected to the database, we've started using it, and we're ready to go. But I said I'll explain it and, you know, why we created it in this class. So other than the fact that it's good to separate the code into separate files, by creating it like this, where we create a constant right here, we can reuse this same connection across our whole app. So when you call require mongoose, it actually returns a singleton object. So this mongoose is what we call a singleton object, and that means that that instance of the object that we've just created will be the same one that's used across the whole application. So any other time in our server when we say require mongoose, it will give us this same instance which we set these on and which we've already called connect on. It's the very same object. That's just the way that require works. It gives us a singleton. So in future, when we want to connect to this database again in another file, all we have to do is include this line here. We don't have to include any of this stuff. We don't have to include the database file. We just need to call require mongoose because that will give us this exact same instance of the class. Okay? So it's just a real simple way for us to connect to the database going forward. We just need one line of code.